As it's international break, this is where we reach out to you lot and say, "Oh, give us some ideas, will you?" So some of you kindly replied, and Josh asked 3 questions. So this episode is dedicated to you, Josh. We're going to be answering all 3 of your questions. So, Gonzo, we're going to kick it off with number 3, actually, because it's the juicy one. Are you judging Tim Steidten on profit made on player sales or speed of impact at club? How are you judging Tim Steidten?
Oh, Josh, do you know what? I guess I am judging Tim Steidten. Until you asked the question, I hadn't really given any thought. I think the first one didn't resonate with me, although I do think it's important. Players sold for profit, basically, is what Josh is asking then. Yeah, I don't think I had. I think he's been here such a short period that I probably hadn't sort of weighed in and considered that player sales might be important on that. I think impact in the first team. I think for me, Tim Steidten doing his job would be for us to get players, maybe like Luis Guilherme, and actually getting those players that might cost 10, 15, 20 million pound. And even before we get to selling them or turning, the easy one is turning them into 50 to 80 million pound, is actually so they're performing like 50 million pound players in the Premier League. So I think for me, that would be it. But it's so hard. I do find it incredibly difficult at the moment because, funny enough, Josh, myself, and Geo just recorded another video, which was from questions which we did over on the forum channel, which I think it was Gary that sent in the questions, had written a list, and he would say of who he thought had brought in certain signings, and he was saying, well, James Ward-Prowse was brought in by David Moyes, and then Kilman was brought in by Lopetegui, and Guilherme was brought in by Tim Steidten. And he'd done a list. He covered everybody basically. So I think even from that perspective, it's hard to assess, who Tim Steidten brought in and what profit might be made on it. But I want him to do the sort of stuff that we've seen Leverkusen doing, which is basically buying. Doesn't even necessarily have to be young. You could be Rodriguez, could be an excellent signing, for instance, if he's effective. He'd be 30 years old midfielder, effective. How much would you pay for him? I don't know, but already Rodriguez isn't performing like a player who's worth nothing, is he? He's playing like a 15 million pound midfielder or whatever the case may be. So I think that it's things like that. Can we spend 100 million and compete with the teams that are spending 200-300 million? I think that would possibly be the measure of Tim Steidten.
So you're basically going to be to try and summarize. You're basically going to be measuring Tim Steidten by squeezing every ounce of value out of that player, basically, to some extent.
On the pitch, though. I think on the pitch, yes. Can he improve us without spending the sort of money that traditionally you might need to spend? Can we get Champions League football? Can we get Champions League football by spending Conference League money?
Yeah, so can we have Waitrose food with a little budget?
Yes, please.
Everything for me, Josh. I'll be sort of judging him on everything. I don't think it can be just pure profit, because then I think you're then almost encouraging. I know this is a fan. We're not David Sullivan, but I wouldn't want David Sullivan solely judging Tim Steidten on profit, because then you're encouraging him to keep selling players. Whilst I'm all for selling players now and again, what I am anti is just being a conveyor belt of talent going in and out your club just like that. Is it impact of club? Well, to some extent, but again, some of it's out with his control. If Lopetegui's making bad decisions on the pitch, can you really judge Tim Steidten? I guess you can to some extent. But even if, to discuss what Gonzo's alluded to in regards to whom signed which player or whom decided which player to sign, as far as I'm concerned, this summer is the first summer I am putting Tim Steidten solely in control of the transfer window. Maybe a bit harshly. However, Lopetegui sat there saying that guy's in charge of the transfer window, and Tim Steidten had an opportunity saying, no, not. We're working together. Tim Steidten happily sat there saying, I'm the Don when it comes to. So even if Lopetegui wanted to kill me, in my opinion, Tim Steidten has chosen to sign off on that transfer. Tim Steidten has chosen to back Lopetegui and go spend 40 million on him. Now it's up to you as to whether you think that's a good idea or not, but I'm still going to sort of judge Steidten for that, because he doesn't have to go with what Lopetegui thinks. For me, the director of football is the man in charge of the transfer window. He's in charge of what the scouts do. He's in charge of which players we go after. He's in charge of how we spend the budget. Sullivan's in charge of what the budget is.
Yeah.
But for me, Steidten's in charge of how we spend that budget. And I think, so I'll be taking everything into consideration when judging Tim Steidten. It's difficult, but I'll be doing it with Lopetegui. Lopetegui isn't purely just results; it's everything else as well. How are you taking academy seriously? Are you taking cup competition seriously? Am I enjoying the football? So on and so forth.
No, yes, no.
And then Tim Steidten, I'll be doing the same. It's not just one thing; it's various different things. So he might be really good at identifying players and profit, but he might be poor at contract negotiations with current players. For now, my question to Tim Steidten is now: can you now go get that release clause of Caduce's contract removed? Oh, can you go do that?
Yeah, good point.
For me, a good director of football, you've got Bowen signed up for 7 years. Fantastic, well done. Can you now go get Caduce to commit his future to West Ham, or at least increase it to 100 million or something? Can you go get something out of the players we've currently got? Can you go change that landscape?
Not all about buying and selling.
It's not. It's also about keeping what you've got and improving what you've got. Same with the academy. I think that's Noble's job to some extent. But Tim Steidten should be working with Mark Noble, where Noble said, look, this centre midfielder, say it was Lewis Orford, look, he's good enough for the first team. I'm not loaning him out. You need to make space. And I expect Tim Steidten to say to Lopetegui, look, we're making room for him. 25-man squad, Lewis Orford's one of them. It's simple as that. We're making room. That's what I'll be judging Steidten on. Everything. And I think that's fair. He's going to be very well reimbursed salary-wise. He's been backed with 150 million in the chance. He's got his brother and his mate over from Germany. He's been backed. He now has control with, basically, in my opinion, Sullivan has got rid of a manager who was safe in his eyes to back Tim Steidten. I think he got rid of Moyes.
I agree. Yeah.
Which I think good. Steidten's now got to almost prove that a little bit and justify that. So I think there's a little bit of pressure on him, actually. So I'll be going with everything.
I like it.
Question 2, a more difficult one to answer, Gonzo. Says, what is Andy Irving play at the club? Why was he signed and why was he kept? Now, Josh put this in 4 days ago for context.
Okay.
Since Josh submitted this question, Andy Irving's going to score 2 in a behind the closed doors friendly against Dagenham and Redbridge. So, Andy Irving, what's going on?
So what's the point of Andy Irving, basically? I think he was... This actually is really interesting because, funny enough, we were just discussing who purchased whom, right? We sort of know Lopetegui was really wanting to kill,
didn't he?
We don't know. We don't know who signed Irving, but we don't.
I think it's Tim Steidten because Andy Irving alluded to Tim Steidten in an interview with Edinburgh News last season. So it was like March time before he came to West Ham.
Look, if I think that quite possibly Irving was purchased as a profit-making scheme, which goes back to the initial Josh's initial question there. I would struggle to think that he was purchased. If he turned out to be a regular first teamer for West Ham, great. Then that works out because we've ended up getting a Premier League standard midfielder for nothing, in that sense. But I would imagine the ideal would have been he's out at Klagenfurten or wherever it was last season, comes back, plays the pre-season, gets his move to Celtic, performs well in the SPL, and then all of a sudden you've got a player that might be worth 5 to 10 million. That is a success for me. And going back to what we were talking about, so a little bit of cross-pollination in the answers to the questions. But I think that was possibly the point. That was the point of Irving. Now, what I suspect happened was there's 2 conflicting stories. One of them is he turned down Celtic, and the other one is that the club stopped him from moving to Celtic. I don't know. None of us know. Well, maybe at some point Fabrizio Romano will, because Tim Steidten will tell him. But unless someone's had a conversation with Tim Steidten or David Sullivan, you're not going to know, right? You're just not going to know. So with that in mind, I do wonder if it was we needed those deals to get over the line on transfer deadline day to complete the Carlos Soler deal. So I wonder if actually the truth is the deal was there for him to go to Celtic, or I think there was an Austrian club as well. But we're going to have to wait just in case we can't offload all these people on loan on deadline day. We don't manage to get Soler in. You're going to have to stay here. And I just wonder if it all took so long that Irving had to stay here. So I think possibly he was a victim of us not being able to loan out our fringe players earlier on. I think probably he was destined and meant to go out on loan somewhere.
It's a bit of a mystery because when he first came in, the rumours were we're now going to have a bit of like we're now their parent club. We're going to send players out to Austria on loan. They're going to give them football. We're going to use that club to become a base for our scouting in Austria, and it means that we can buy young players in Austria and send them on loan to that club so that they get top talent that they can't afford, and we get somewhere to buy them from Austria and leave them in Austria. They should be fine at that club. They'll get minutes because they're too good for that club. The only reason they've got them is because West Ham can afford them and they can't. And hopefully they go on to make it. If they do, either we take them and we've got them, or maybe Salzburg will pick them up and pay a premium for them or something. That was my suspicion. It was almost like a bit like a payment to, because it was like 2 million, wasn't it? I thought it was a bit like a payment to the club. Like, we'll buy him and that'd be your money. That's your fee, if you like. However, we've done no business since. So that blows that theory of mine out the water. So it comes down to what's our intentions with Andy Irving. And given how the club have treated him, and now I'm not criticising the club here, but he's been snuck in the back door. We haven't even announced him, right? We just never mentioned him. Right, we all knew we signed him. Well, actually, we knew because of how it was being reported. It was on Transfer Market as a completed deal. And we were all like, is this true? Like, why? But such a reputable, reliable website is saying that this is done, then it must be done, right? But yet there's nothing anywhere. Turns out it was correct. But it was almost like a mystery. West Ham never told anyone we signed this player. It was just done on the sneaky. It wasn't like Somerville. We don't want anyone gazumping us. It was like sneaky. It was almost like an embarrassment. Like, oh, we've signed this player, but don't want anyone knowing, right? But again, he come back in pre-season. He's appearing in photos, and the club still did nothing with him. And after the first or second friendly, it was a second one because he scored that free kick. No, he wasn't a free kick. He scored that effort from the edge of the box. The second pre-season friendly,
the Dagenham goal. Yes,
that's it. Dagenham, that was it. So I was making my thumbnail. So I went on Google and put in Andy Irving, looking for a photo of him hitting the ball, and it said it was a URL to his player profile on West Ham's website, and it tells you when that page was created. Said 4 hours ago. But they created it just before kickoff of the second friendly. So even when he was in Austria, he didn't even have his own page on the West Ham website. It was almost like, quickly, we better put this together because he got an assist in the last game and he's playing this one. Better put something else.
I think we'd been on the West Ham website more than Irving.
So it's all been hush hush. My suspicions is it's just such a low cost deal. His wages will be minimum. Yeah, I think when you get an academy player come through, their wages are so small in comparison to a first team player, and they might have the same stature in your squad, which is we're second or third choice for that position, but the difference of wages will be quite drastic. I'm purely speculating. My guess would be Irving is on 10, 15 grand a week.
I'd be surprised it'd be closer to 10 than 15.
Bear in mind his route from Hearts to a second division club, Bundesliga 2, out to Austria, not even for a big club in Austria. His wages would have been low. So when we've gone and got him, it's a small fee, small wages. He might be good enough. And even if he's not, we'll probably be able to sell him and get our money back. And you know something? I think that's all he was. It was a punt. I think it was just a bit of a punt. In the worst case scenario, he's a really cheap option to have who might be good enough for the Premier League. And if he's not, it hasn't cost us the end of the world and we can just move him on. And just like how we brought him to West Ham, we'll probably do it in the same way. We'll just let him go away on the hush-hush. We'll just sell him to someone for a few million And we just
You
won't
look
tell
in 10
anyone.
years and his profile page will still be there from the Dagenham game.
Yeah, it just won't tell anyone.
As a West Ham employee. Still.
But to do something, it's a fun story at the moment, and I like fun stories.
It is, yeah.
And finally, he said, did we make a mistake buying Guilherme and not having the budget for Duran?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, well, the time will tell on that one, basically, won't it? That is a time one. So yeah, if he doesn't work out, the thing is, here you got. You see, I understand what you're doing there, Josh. You're thinking 20 odd million for Guilherme. You're adding it to whatever other money you've got in your mind.
Well, the Fulkrug fee, isn't it?
Yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it. I think the thing to remember is that he was, I believe, asking for 90 grand a week, Duran. It wasn't just 40 million pound and 90 grand a week. It was expensive. I also don't think that the Guilherme deal was done at the 25 million that was reported at the time. I think there's probably a lot. So don't be surprised if Guilherme's on about 20 grand a week and West Ham have committed to paying 20 million euros if everything happens. But also don't be surprised if what that actually boils down to is we've spent about 8 million quid on him so far. So I do think I'm not sure that the two could be that. But I am to play the game in answer to your question. There is a scenario where Guilherme doesn't get in the team at all and ends up going back to Brazil in 2 seasons or getting loaned back in 18 months' time with his tail between his legs. And we end up cutting our losses on him and it doesn't work out. And by which time Duran's banging in goals for Barcelona, which would make it really, really terrible. There is also, and this is why there is also the prospect that actually Duran kicks off Aston Villa at some point soon as a moody one, as a tantrum, doesn't play very much, and then Guilherme at some point gets off the bench at West Ham and then and looks electric. I mean, and this is the thing. I do think it's very early, and I don't mean to. You're caught between a rock and a hard place doing this stuff. I don't want to overly judge Lopetegui or West Ham, but at some point you have to deal with the matches that you're watching.
Yeah,
you can't watch a football match. I'm not saying anything about West Ham against Crystal Palace because I'm not going to comment on anything West Ham until March next year. You can't do it, particularly not when you're doing the YouTube channel, right? You can't do that stuff. So you've got to look at the evidence of your eyes. From what I've seen, it's very small, no big judgment. We look a bit slow. All right? We look a bit slow. The old pace thing's been popping up in my mind again, which I thought had sort of been put to bed. This boy's rapid. This is the thing. It was all at the time. The fastest player in Brazil, clocked doing quicker miles an hour than Mbappe or Roadrunner or whatever it was, right? All this stuff was out there, rapid. We're all seeing these clips where he's knocking it past them. I'm running around him, and he's basically a Forrest Gump, isn't it? Basically, right? So there is also the option that he comes off the bench in a game where we really need him and does something special, and then starts against the team. It's really, really hard. It's really hard. But I do understand at the moment it's easy. I think you would be looking at him thinking, oh, maybe if we didn't get him because he's not being used and got that Duran, we'd probably be in a better position right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. You have to review it. It's basically pieces of a jigsaw. You're just building the jigsaw. Every game is one piece of the jigsaw, but you need so many bits until you've got your complete thing. In regards to the question, did we make a mistake buying Guilherme instead of Duran? I'm going to say no and no, because it was possible, and I think it was very possible that we could have signed both.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the end of the transfer window where it was a case of one or the other. It was at the very start of the transfer window we decided to go for Guilherme. And it was also at the start of the transfer window we decided to go for Duran. So when we knew we had X amount of money to spend, we decided we were going to divvy up like so. We could easily have gone back then and gone, well, that's for Guilherme, but we're also going to put that for Duran. And now we're going to have to make sacrifices somewhere, or we're going to have to sell someone. Instead of loaning out Ward-Prowse, we're going to have to sell Ward-Prowse for 15 million because we want to go get Duran. We're going to have to cut our losses on him. I think it wasn't one or the other. We could have had both. the reason I don't regret buying Guilherme is not because of what Guilherme's done, because he hasn't done anything yet, and it's not because of what I know about Guilherme pre-West Ham, because I don't know anything about him pre-West Ham. But it's Tim Steidten's #1 pick, or certainly comes across as. And I want our director of football to be able to influence the transfer window. And if he strongly feels that this 18-year-old is worth 20-25 million, to bloody go get him, as far as I'm concerned. This is his job. His job is identifying talent. I don't want to go away from that. I want Tim Steidten to have a bit of money every summer, squad spaces every year, where he's bringing in players that he thinks could become top players. So I'm glad we've got Guilherme purely because Tim Steidten wants him. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Second of all, I would have loved Duran. And I think we made a mistake not getting Duran. And the frustrating thing, and I'm said in 2 or 3 other videos now, so I'm going to make sure this is my last one. Probably won't be, but I'll try. It wasn't difficult. 40 million, and we pissed around with offer after offer till the end. Aston Villa were saying, just go away, stop it. Like you're just wasting time now. Just do. We've all been there. I don't use vintage, however. Mrs. Geo uses vintage. She'll have something up for sale for £5, and someone will say £4, and she says, no, it's £5 over reply and go £4.10. It's 8. That's only 10p. And B, you're only 90p away. Just pay the extra 90p. And I think we were a little bit like that with Aston Villa. It was like 32 million. No, 40. What about 32 in Danny Ings? No, it's 40 million. 32 in Lewis Orford? No, it's 40 million. 33? I don't know what the offers were, but we must have made about 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Villa did not change. Their demand stayed the same throughout. We were ones that made it difficult. So I think we're going to... I don't know who'll regret signing Guilherme. As Gonzo said, time will tell. I think we'll regret signing Duran, but I think we could have signed both. So, shall we leave it there, my friend?
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
There you go, Josh. All 3 questions answered. An entire video dedicated to you. There's still some other questions we've got left to answer. We've done Gary's and Steve's. It's on the forum channel. So go check that out. Also, next month, there's another international break, so we'll be asking for your questions then. And for those that we have yet to answer, we will be. Don't worry. We are going to answer every single question we got from our subscribers on that community post. There's 45 comments. We will reply to every one. So keep your eyes out. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Chat myself and Gonzo. Catch you in a bit.